Hi guys, thank you for tuning in to The Story of a Yogi. Like a Earthkeeper here, and we have our special guest today, Cory. Cory, would you mind pronouncing your last name so I don't butcher it?
You can just say Guerra. You're supposed to roll the R's, but I don't
Oh, say it, let's hear it.
I don't speak Spanish, but Guerra, like that.
Ooh.
But it means war in Spanish.
Oh wow, it means war.
I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
why.
So how would I pronounce it in English?
I usually go with Guerra.
Guerra.
It's not how I just roll with it. It's fine.
Okay. Well, we're so excited to have Cory with us today, and Cory is going to share with us his story of how he became a yogi. So, Cory, how did you become a yogi? Where did it all start?
Well, as a child, I always knew something was off with what I've been told. Parents they were like, oh, we're Christian, and the other side was kind of Catholic, but they didn't really know any better. And sometime after about the age of 10 or so, my dad got cable and we watched Nat Geo, Discovery Channel, and the History Channel, and they had like Ancient Aliens and the ghost shows and stuff about Sasquatch and stuff. And that's where I was like, okay, something's up, but I don't really know any definitive answers about anything. And now they're like, well, what do you believe if you don't believe in what we believe? And it's like, well, I don't know, but what you're saying is entirely true, and I don't know either. And then their answer is like, oh, well, we don't really know either. We're just and they don't care. And I'm like, I need to know. So I dropped it. I watched all I could watch for some years, and then I dropped it until after high school. So I got out of the military. I got separated from medical. I tried college, quit that relatively quickly, and then I realized, I'm like, okay, I got some free time. Let's kind of figure this out. Because I always wanted to, and I finally got a laptop. So I started investigating, and I went down the deep rabbit hole of like the conspiracy theories and like Bigfoot and the aliens and the basic stuff you'd look at. And then I kept seeing in like the recommended side on YouTube, like, something about mystics and yogis and crap. And I was like, I don't know what they have to say, but I'll listen to it. And it seemed kind of far out there. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And so after a while, I noticed that with all these shows, they're like, okay, the alien, something about the aliens and saying, I heard a thing where it's like, oh, it's a human vessel and it's not really what you are or whatever. And there's all this stuff. And then I kind of realized the normal sources ain't gonna cut it. I have to go to something else. So I started listening to like these gurus or whatever. And I whether they were bad or good, I listened to all of it. And then eventually, after about 3 years of going into like a dark night of the soul, deep depression kind of thing, kind of sat down one night in utter defeat, and I was like, I give up. And I kind of asked the universe, I'm like, you need to either show me or kill me because this is ridiculous. And I got both. And what I realized was I'm not, as a person, what you call by your name, it's not real. And I was like, oh my God, it's not real. And I started laughing because I was depressed for so long. And it was funny because I realized in an instant I fed into it. It was all a joke. And so I can't take it seriously anymore. And I also realized, what was it? Oh yeah, there never will be. There isn't a problem right now. There never was a problem. There never will be a problem, and it's only because of the identity. So as long as you take on an identity, then there's problems. But when you drop the identity, then there's no problems. But it's not to say to throw it away completely because you're still human. So you need the ego to do things in the world. So I did the 3-year thing. I had my great epiphany. And then I started integrating everything. So I'm like, okay, I need to break down all my emotional stuff. And I need to understand how the emotions work, where they come from, the root cause of it, not just looking at the surface like a lot of people do. I never got into I never did a lot of like proper yogic practices. It was just it's kind of like what I felt. And so
Like you listened to your own inner guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was you needed to move your body or you needed to work through emotional stuff or
Right.
whatever it was.
Yeah. So I just inhaled information like 8, 12 hours a day. I didn't sleep. I needed to know. And the first epiphany was, it gave me the conviction I needed to know the rest of it. It was kind of like the master key. And most people don't ever get to that point. So I kept going on and on and on. And it's like, well, I found a few good sources of information, which would have been the near-death experiences, the channeling, and the personal experiences. There's a number of, like, for example, in the Navy, I had never really been stressed in my life. I grew up, had friends, and then nothing afterward. After school was gone, it was the first time I really felt deep emotional pain. And so one night, I was sleeping in my rack or whatever, and I heard this voice. It wasn't me. I was like, oh shit, that wasn't me. Like it said, it was like a deep golden voice. It was like, why? And I was like, oh. I didn't have any reference for it at the time, so I was like, oh, it's Jesus or something. I don't know, but now I know better. It was probably one of my guides, or whatever. I don't really know. Or it was pre-programmed to, for me to hear at a certain point in time. I don't know. But I heard that, and that's when I started questioning everything. And then, so I started getting into like, how do I put it? I listened to like Teal Swan, like yogis, and like Sadhguru, or there's a bunch of them. And I started really breaking it down. Okay, like here's yoga. This is about the most legitimate thing of all the things you could look into. And then the channeling and whatnot. And then I tried telling people about it.
How'd that go?
Not so well. I'm at the point where I don't even bother anymore. Like if I have my classes, like in my courses, I'm thinking I'm gonna do it how I seen the people that I watched. Like they would just, and do the intro, like 5-10 minutes. This is what's up, and then just kind of sit there, stare at the ground until someone asks a question. Because no one's really all that interested in it, and it's like, yeah, that was another things I looked at. One of the other things I looked into is like, why though? Why is no one there? Why is no one interested? So I started looking into possible reasons why. And there's this guy I like watching all the time. He was a psychonaut, so he took a lot of like LSD and stuff, or DMT, all that kind of shit. I don't know. I don't take them. But I listened to what he had to say, and he was describing a book he wrote called Spiral Dynamics. And I found also another source that was channeled, and it's called the Michael Teachings, and they had a soul chart. So they call it soul age. In humans, we discovered a very similar thing. There's also 9 stages of ego development. It's all the same thing, but from different perspectives. And basically, as a human, there's a range of consciousness, and everyone is, it's sort of, how do I put it? There's a spectrum, and when people reach adult age, they're at different stages of development, and that would explain why some people that are adults are stupid, and other ones are just pretty smart. And it's a harsh truth. And the majority of the populace on this earth, on the planet, they're in the middle. They're young souls. So the Michael chart would it goes by infant, baby, young, mature, old. Now my grandma, she and my great aunt, they were sisters. They're both dead. My grandma died when I was like 5 or 6. But anyways, my brother, somehow some Ouija board thing on the internet, I don't know. Now you can like see things. So one night he was like, "Oh hey, grandma's here," and like, aunt. And I'm like, "Oh really? I have a question." So I had a book. It was a Michael Teachings book. I threw it away afterwards, but there was a chart, and I was like, okay, well, I need answers because I know what I know what you're able to do because I listened to the channeling stuff, and I was like, well, tell me where I'm at on this chart because I have no idea. Where's my soul at? Because I don't really want to come back. And I wanted to be at the end, but I'm not. She said I was a early stage mature soul, so I was like, that makes sense. So I got really mad because I was like, I'm not at the end. And I think a lot of humans think like, oh, I want to be at the end. Well, after enough channelings, listening to them, they said that they updated the reincarnational cycle where it's like now it's a choice. You die and you don't really have to come back. But I learned just because you think you don't want to come back now, your soul, when you don't have all the pain in the body attached, your perspective is just completely different, and that's the perspective of your soul. And you can tap into it while you're still human, and that's what yogis are really good at doing. They use different words for it, but that's the gist of it.
What are your thoughts on ascended masters or ones who have mastered leaving
Oh yeah, they're
and
great.
ascending?
Yeah, they're super rare. But yeah, I listen to Sadhguru a lot, and he's like, we can train people to the point where they can just drop their body if they wanted to, but we pin them at the last little part so they can say keep them around to help everyone else. So I think they're legitimate. I listen to both hard, but yeah, I don't know. There's so much to break down. Like it's like a lot of people get into this. Or like say the girls at work, for example, they're like, "Oh, astrology, oh, what's your zodiac sign?" And they think it's a cute little whatever, and I'm like, you don't understand the half of it,
right?
And
astrology is so complex,
right? And so so I was talking about soul age and apocalypse. So the reason no one does this work is it's so painful, and people don't have time when they're caught up in survival to put everything down, take the free time, go through like an emotional roller coaster, and how you can't afford to be depressed and like, wondering about the world and just losing it because you don't understand yet.
And I'm sure some people are afraid too.
Yeah.
Not only do we not have time, we're in survival mode, but I think there's people that are afraid of what they might find or afraid of the unknown.
No, it's like I'll use parents or coworkers as sort of like test subjects, and I'll ask them questions, and I'm telling them straight up how it is, and they refuse to look at it, and it's like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Why is that? And it's like, well, I listened to all this stuff, and they're like, well, when you come in as a human, once again, you have got to forget everything.
Mm-hmm, the veil.
Right. But why though? Because if you remembered everything, it would take away from the experience of being human. So you have to forget. But because your soul matures, you pick up experience. So some things are innate when you're born. You naturally are drawn to things and pick up stuff quickly or not. And it just depends what you want to accomplish in each lifetime. So yoga. Back to yoga. I make fun of Western yoga. It's bastardized, watered down version of what is originally done in the East. So, okay.
And it's hard to, well, I shouldn't say it's hard. It's not hard because that's one of the things I've really tried hard is to stay to the ancient ways and the ancient teachings.
Yeah.
But people are like, Ashtanga, what? They aren't interested. They want hot yoga. A 3-letter word is more interesting to them because they heard about it, and that's what people talk about. And it's like whatever everybody else is doing, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. No one wants to take the time to discover for themselves what the self wants. No. And that's the whole purpose of yoga, self-discovery, self-realization.
And I would say people only get into it for one of two reasons. Either, and this is the rare option, they naturally are, their soul's advanced and they're pre-programmed, and you hear from like some of these masters just one day, they didn't have to try, it just kind of happened naturally. And that's why they're masters. They're really good at it. They're naturally just there. But for most of us, we have to go through an extreme amount of pain, and that's what causes I need to know thing.
Right. Someone has a heart attack or a stroke or a knee surgery, and then my doctor said, this is what I need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yoga. So, people in the West I think they get into it for a few reasons. One of them is it's just a community thing. It's like, oh, most of them are just women, so it's like, oh, we're gonna get the girls together and do this thing. It's a community thing because most people are alone and desperate and all that kind of crap. So they go for community, and then they go for it's okay. Oh, here's a good example. I'll hear cases where they're like, "Oh, yoga fixed my life," and blah blah blah, because like I stretched for the first time in my life, and I'm like, dude, it's because you just stretched for the first time in your life. If you just stretched, you've been fine. It's not like they don't even understand what it's intended for. It's intended or designed to help the person evolve their like raise their consciousness, their energy, emotion, whatever, on all levels of being human. And it doesn't matter where you pick one or the other. Really, it's all of them is best. And eventually, you heighten your perception to such a point where you see beyond the human perception, and you see beyond the veil, so to speak, and you get in touch with your true nature. And then when you do that, then you live more peacefully and more intensely in a good way. And that's all there is to it. And you just, and like the guy that I talked to, he chanted a group on Skype to Bosch. He's pretty cool. He's like, look, you don't need to really figure it out anymore. You just need to live more. And it's like, yeah, you're right. So now I don't really care about, like, I'm a little rusty with all the explanations of the intricate little details. I forgot most of them. But I remember what mattered. And now it's more about just living. And so that's what I've been doing. So, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
But you also want to share.
A little bit. It's dying. It's dying.
Yeah?
It's dying, unfortunately. Because when I first wanted to come here, I never had that validation of like I'm not crazy. But since talking to Bosch, he kind of confirmed everything. Then I was like, oh, now it's just about living out, figuring it out. So now it's like the motive for say being here and teaching isn't the same as it was. But I'll still do it. I'll commit to however many months my course is, and we'll see what happens. Oh yeah, but yoga, it always cracks me up. Oh my god! So these people like, oh, I stretch it, and I'm like, you idiot, like, and then the community thing, and then on top of that, oh man, I watched. I seen you were doing the teacher training, and I was like, oh, do I want to do that? So I looked it up on YouTube. I want to deep dive late at night, and I was like, let's see what they're up to. Like, how does it work, the teacher training? So I watched some group, they went to Puerto Rico, or they went to some other place in Hawaii, and I was like, this is all it is? Are you kidding me? They're just like...
Micro program's not a 2-day weekend program, though.
No, it was like a couple weeks.
I see, though, some of these things that they're like, oh, here you are, you're a yoga teacher. Not even reading a single book. My program is 6 months long. You read 7 books. You take quizzes. I put people through the ringer because it's an honor to be a yoga teacher. I believe.
Yeah. What is this? I get off track a lot.
But yeah, it's pretty much given away in a lot of these places.
But I looked up what Indian people are. Their take on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you're right though. Like, no offense to you in this place, but a lot of yoga teachers in the West are just masters of poses.
Yes.
And that's all. It's just prep work. It's all it is in the West, and it never gets anywhere. They're just stuck in the beginning loop. And I'm like, what are you doing? So, but yeah, most people aren't really all that interested, nor should they be, because that's just where they're at.
And I've seen a lot of this just increase ego. Yeah. And that's why it's important to dive into the philosophical. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think so.
And the lineage and the history and the values, I mean, we dive into all of that. I think that's really important because you're right. When you're just mastering poses and you're teaching yoga and then it's just all about the ego, then shame.
Oh man.
So, my golden question that I ask everybody, what would be your advice for humanity?
Look at your crap, deal with it. Don't get too caught up in relationships from the get-go just because it seems like a good idea. If you're a man or woman, look at your own nature as a male or female. Develop that, figure that out, because it's so messed up anyways. It's so ass backwards. Oh my god, a lot of men are feminine and a lot of women are masculine, and they got no one taught them nothing. It's just a hot mess. Deal with your emotional stuff, work out if that suits, work out, eat as best you can, study the stuff when it feels right, and that's it. So.
I like it. And it is it's crazy because as much as we know we're moving into this big transformation on a global level, people seem more lost than ever.
I'll do it.
Just like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
For sharing your story with us and being here today.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
No problem.
So Cory has, and I'm not real sure when we will have the opportunity to post this on the YouTube channel, but he does have a self-realization discourse that will be starting at the Quantum Realm in January, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So if, when you get this video, if you want to check into that, you can. And it's to be determined if we'll have another one yet, but so just tune in and stay up to date with us. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We try to post everything on all the social media that we can. Thank you again, Cory, for being here. And thank you all for tuning in and being with us today. Bye-bye now.